Hello everyone, good afternoon. I hope you are all doing great. How's your day going? And welcome to another session with Accent Realty. We know today is Tuesday, and once it's Tuesday, you know that you are going to see Accent Realty on your screen. So welcome everyone to another session. And today we have an exciting topic that we'll be discussing, which is factors to consider before acquiring a property in Nigeria. So I hope we're all ready to learn, and we are basically ready to learn because it's going to be a very exciting session. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of people that are considering or are in the process of acquiring a property, and then you might be oblivious as to what exactly you should do, what you are expected to do, and like just how to do it, how to carry on the processes, and the things that you should also look into before acquiring a property. So today we're going to discuss a few of those things that would help you to in acquiring your property, to make informed decisions and not just acquire any property and then to save you from future risk and legal issues that might come, because that might occur due to maybe not carrying out your due diligence or doing the necessary things that you should have done before acquiring a property. So that's what we're going to discuss today, and I hope we're all ready to learn. So the first thing that we are going to mention, that I am going to point out, is knowing whether the property is a family property. If it's a land, is it a family land? So what is a family land? A family land is a land that belongs to a particular family, either by way of inheritance or settlement. That means like a particular family owns that land. For example, Adiola family owns a particular land in this so place, and it could have been maybe they were the first people that settled on that land, or maybe through inheritance from this person to this person to this person. If that land, that family has been in ownership of that particular land, so that's an example of a family land. So first of all, you have to consider, is that land, is it a family land? If it is a family land, you have to understand that before purchasing or acquiring a property or a land that is a family land, there are relevant persons that must give consent to that transfer or to that transaction, which is the head of the family and a principal member of the family. So what this means is that not just any member of the family can give consent to that transaction. So just a mere member cannot walk up to you and say, I want to sell this family land, and then they are telling you that it's fine, I will sell the land. There's no, you need to ask, okay, this family land, this land belongs to the Adela family, yeah? So who is the head of the family, and then who is the principal member of the family? I need them to consent to it. I need them to be there. Most especially if preparing a deed, they should be parties to that deed. The principal, the head of the family, and the principal member of that family should be parties to that deed, because they are the ones that have they are like the important people that should consent to the transfer of or the transaction in that property. So the next one we should also look at is if it's a community property or a community land, a family land as well. What are the customs that are carried on, that what are the customs in relation to land in that community? For example, I know of some communities where if you are acquiring a land, even though if you are the third or fifth, if you are the 15th person that has acquired that land, for example, the land has passed on from Mr. A to Mr. B to Mr. C to D, E, F, G, and just say you are Mr. W, you still have to pay a certain amount to the Omoniles or to the people of the community, no matter, even if the land has passed on from a long line of persons. So that's another important thing, that's another factor that you should consider. You should know, you should investigate and know that what other customs do you have in this particular area in regards to your land. Some areas they ask that a fee is also paid to the palace. It could be development fee, just anything. So that's another factor to consider, aside whether it's a family land, if it's a family land. So what customs that would relate to land in that area. Then another major factor that you should consider is whether the land is in dispute, in whether there's any legal dispute going there, whether there's any legal case going on in that particular land, because there are some lands that have been through legal battle. There have been legal battles on that particular land for years. My years. I know of some certain cases over a particular land that has been for about 10 years, and that land is there. People just keep on going there and selling it. Meanwhile, there's actually a case, or there's actually a dispute on that particular land. So you have to be thorough to run your investigation to know if this particular land there's a dispute on that land, because acquiring a land that has a dispute is just putting yourself at risk, because that land is the ownership of that land is in question. So you cannot then go ahead to acquire that type of land. It will just be detrimental to you. So it's another factor to consider, to know if there's a legal dispute, if there's a dispute on that particular land, and if there is, it's a no. It should be avoided for your own sake, for future purposes. So that's another factor. And then another factor now is ownership. You should inquire and know the owners of that land. Just like I said, you should know whether it's a family land. You should also know the owners of that land, because you are dealing with something so delicate. You have to know the owner of the land. You cannot acquire land from a person that doesn't own the land. Like the law says, you cannot give what you do not have. So if you acquire a land from someone that doesn't own that land, in fact you don't own the land either, because that person doesn't have the land, so the person cannot pass what they do not have. So you have to know if it's the owner. If it's not like an agent that you are dealing with, if it's an agent, you need to ask the agent who is the owner of this land. If it's an attorney acting on behalf of the owner, you need to ask who is the owner. It's not safe to enter into a contract of sale with an agent or an attorney without inquiring who the owner of the property is. So moving on from that leads us to another factor, which is title documents. How do you investigate really the owners of a land? The next fact, which is the best way to do that, is acquiring the title documents of that land. So that title documents could be in form of certificate of occupancy, it could be, which is popularly known as CFO, it could be a deed, the deed with a governor's consent, of course. It could be a deed of assent, it could be a legal mortgage. There are different title documents, but before we move further, we should note that a receipt is not a good title document. It should not be entering into a contract of sale upon using the receipt as a title document is not safe, because it is not registered. It's not registrable. So a receipt is not a good title document. This is just a warning to people that like to purchase and acquire properties and just lean alone on receipts. No, it's not a good title document. So moving on, as we're saying, so you should investigate the title documents. If it's a CFO, if it's a deed, you should know. And if they are these title documents, are they registered? Because it's not enough to just own, to just have those documents. They have to be registered, because the law is that any document that transfers ownership should be registered. So you should take note too, aside the person telling you they have title documents, you should also ask, is this title document registered? So moving on, another factor is zoning restrictions. So zoning helps to know. Zoning means the type of structures and activities that are allowed on a particular land. So you should also put in effort to find out what zoning restrictions are on that land, because it could be that this helps to know if it's a residential, if you want to have that property for maybe agricultural purposes, is that the zoning, is that allowed in that area? Is it for only residential purposes, I mean for houses, or is it for agricultural purposes, or is it for commercial purposes? So you have to understand, you have to find out about that, so that you don't acquire the property and then you realize that the purpose for acquiring the property was probably for commercial purposes, and then you realize that you cannot actually carry on with that, because the zoning restrictions on that land is that it's only for residential purposes. So that's another factor to consider. Then another one is boundary issues. You have to ascertain, you have to be sure that the property or the land that you're acquiring has defined boundaries. And how do you ascertain this? The best way to ascertain that is to have a survey plan, because this would draw out the property and to like give details as to the boundaries, or where the property starts, where it ends. Because if you acquire a land that does not have defined boundaries, this could cause legal battles at the end. It could cause battles between maybe neighbors or people just around. So you have to consider that when acquiring a property. Is it a property that has a survey plan that has defined boundaries, to avoid battles or running around with over the particular land property? Then another thing you should consider is, another factor you should look into is that, is there an existing lien or debt on this property? Because, for example, some properties are acquired through a mortgage. That means the person takes a loan to acquire a particular property. So in that instance, you have to find out if that person has fully paid his debt, or if that debt is still going on that property. You need to understand that you also need to find out if, for example, there is an issue of, maybe it's a developed property already, and then there's an issue of an existing NEPA bill. Who is going to, you need to find out if there's an existing NEPA, an astounding sum of NEPA bill on that property. You need to find out too if there is, first of all, and if there is, you need to find out who is going to be liable for that debt. You have to have an agreement with the seller, whether they intend to pay that existing outstanding sum, or if they expect you as the new owner to pay that outstanding. So that's why it's very important for you to investigate, to know if there's any existing debt or lien on a particular property before acquiring, because once you acquire that property, you automatically acquire everything that is on that property, which would include the debt. So you need to, for your own purpose, you need to make sure that you thoroughly investigate to know that there is no existing lien or debt on that property. Then another thing to consider is, another factor to look into is if it's a property under government acquisition. Properties on the lands under government acquisition are properties or lands that the government have acquired for a particular purpose, which they might be willing to let go of that land to you or not, but what basically it means that a particular land has already been acquired by the government. So if you go ahead to acquire that land, it's detrimental on your part, because you as you could lose that property, you could lose that house, that land, and if you erect a property on it, it could be demolished and you will lose it, and you might not even be entitled to any compensation. So you should also consider that when trying to acquire a property. You should look into it. Is it a property under government acquisition? Another one is the conditions of the property. If there is a development, if there's a building, or if there's a building on that property, you should also find out if there was a building permit, if the building permit was acquired before erecting that property, before erecting that building. And you should also ask for building plans and relevant fees that have been paid in respect of that property before acquiring that property. So these are some of the factors that you should consider before going ahead to acquire a property in Nigeria, because at the long run you could be at loss if you just dive right into it without doing your proper investigation or doing your due diligence before acquiring a property. I hope we've all been able to learn today, and if you have any questions, you can leave it down in the comment section. We hope to see you same time, same place